From Focal Point Radio and WEBR in Fairfax, Virginia, this is The Mimi Gerges Show. Wafa Sultan has become a lightning rod in the Arab world. Through her writings and media appearances criticizing the Islamic religion, she has provoked some very passionate reactions. Some look to her as a hero who dares to speak publicly what they believe in secret. Others see her as an opportunist and an apostate deserving of death. Wafa Sultan says that we are in a struggle between modernity and backwardness, between people that treat women as animals and those that treat them as human beings. She was born and raised in Syria in a traditional Muslim family. She became a medical doctor and now makes her home in the U.S. In 2006, she was named by Time magazine as one of the 100 most influential people in the world. Her controversial look at Islam and the threat it poses to the rest of the world is called A God Who Hates. Wafa Sultan joins me in the studio. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
You start your book with these words, quote, "Most Muslims, if not all of them, will condemn me to death when they read this book. They may not even read it." Why do you say that?
Because in Islam, you're not supposed to go against it. You're not supposed to criticize Islam. We are brainwashed at very early age to accept what they were taught without any question.
But isn't every religion like that?
This is the truth about Islam, and I am trying to clean my own house. I really don't know much about other religions. The hot issue now is with Islamic terrorism. So it is our duty to face Islam.
Has anyone threatened your life?
Every day, every single day, I receive many death threats.
Like what? What do they say to you?
We know where you live. We know what school your children go to, and just wait and see. And I know, they're my community. They're my people. I know their mindset. I know how determined they are. And they are very well trained with time. If not today, tomorrow. If not tomorrow, after tomorrow. They will never give up on, getting me.
So are you afraid?
I live in fear, but I reached a point that I am numb. I cannot feel it anymore. At least I'm leading a life of my choice. And I'm enjoying my life. Because for 30 years of my life, I lived just as a dead fish. And now I know what it means to be a free woman, what it means to be treated as a human being. I'm paying very high price for speaking up against the cruelty of Islam, but at the same time, I am enjoying my humanity. I am enjoying my life.
I want to ask you about your appearances on the Al-Jazeera network. This is an Arabic network aired broadly in the Arab world. This was back in 2006. This really propelled you to fame in that part of the world. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I've been speaking up against the cruelty of Islam since I came to this country in 1998. But because I did it in Arabic, prior to my interview on Al-Jazeera, I had never expected to be known by the West. But somehow, my interview in 2006 was translated to English. And finally, I was, introduced to the West.
So you were already well known in the Arab world.
Prior, I have become a very well-known writer in the Arab world, and that's what brought me to Al-Jazeera, because they felt the impact of my message in the Islamic world. So they decided to invite me to Al-Jazeera to finish me, to smash me, knowing that I had been in the United States for 16 years. They didn't expect Wafa Sultan to be able to defend herself in classical Arabic.
Now, the question, there was a question posed to you, and it was this. The host says to you, is there a clash of civilizations between the West and the Muslim world? And you said, no, this is a clash between civilization, which is exemplified by the West, and barbarism, exemplified by the Muslim world.
Absolutely, and I still believe it.
Now, I can see how people would be very upset with that.
I don't care, I lived under Islamic Sharia. You cannot argue with me about my life. For 30 years, I practiced Islam and I lived under Islamic Sharia. It is my life. I don't only read about Islam, I lived Islam. It is my life. It's my experience. I'm speaking about my suffering as a Muslim and as a woman too.
Al-Jazeera actually apologized to their viewers.
After my third interview, they apologized.
To their viewers for
Yes.
having you on because
Yes.
they said that you insulted Islam.
Yes.
Did you?
No, I didn't. I said the truth about Islam. Saying the truth is an insult. They consider it an insult.
After the 9/11 attacks, many Americans were asking themselves, why do they hate us? What's your answer to that question?
Because you're not Muslim. And this is the mission of every Muslim on earth, is to spread Islam and to take over. Muslims believe Islam one day and, soon will control the whole world because it is the only religion accepted by Allah.
But this is only radical or fundamentalist Muslims.
This
I mean,
is the
clearly,
core-
Dr. Sultan, there's 1 billion Muslims out there, and if they all hated us, we'd be dead.
I'm not talking about Muslims. My problem is with Islam, is not with Muslims, is with the religion itself, not with the followers. Because I believe 95%, if not more, of Muslims don't know the deepness of their religion. You gotta remember that 70% of the Muslim population are illiterate, who don't know how to read and write. Only 20% of the Muslim population are Arab, and Islam is Arabic religion. In order to fully understand Islam, you need to know how to read and write Arabic. And most Islamic texts were written originally in Arabic and never been translated to any other language.
My guest is Wafa Sultan. She's an author and also a medical doctor. She was born and raised in Syria and now resides in the U.S. The book we're discussing is called A God Who Hates. A courageous woman who inflamed the Muslim world speaks out against the evils of Islam. Tell us about your early years growing up in Syria. You describe yourself as a smart little girl who loved to read.
Absolutely.
What were kind of the books that you used to read?
I was reading whatever, used to be published in the Lebanese media at that time. And the Lebanese media was a copy of the French media. So at very early age, I was exposed to different kind of ideas, to different kind of thoughts. And I lived in a small city where we had a big Christian community. So whenever you see Muslims living by Christian, you will see them less Islamic, less strict, because of the interaction with the Christian community.
Well, what were you taught in school about non-Muslims? About Christians and Jews?
They're kafir. They don't know Allah. And eventually we have to kill them all. And we have to spread our, religion. I believe it or not, at the age of 8, if you ask me, would you like a bar of candy or would, like to kill a Jew? I would proudly tell you to kill a Jew, because we were ordered by Allah to kill the Jews and the Christian who don't believe in Muhammad and his message.
And do you think that that's still going on in the public education?
No doubt about it, even in worse way, because now they have the technology to spread the message.
So at what point in your life did you begin to question your religion?
It is, it took me a book to answer this question. It didn't happen overnight. It is not easy. And people always ask me why we don't hear more Muslim women speak up. From my experience, I can tell you it is not easy. It took me many years and many experiences to be who I am today. It is very tough to go against your culture, against your religion, against your own family. I haven't spoken to my mom for the last 5 years. It's not easy. It's very tough.
Why not? She refuses to?
She came to visit me in America, and she heard from the Muslim community of what I was doing. And she used to tell me she didn't accept me as a free woman. She used to tell me, what are you trying to change? You are just a piece of woman. You are just a woman. You are a piece of garbage.
So are you saying that even women have accepted this idea that they're
yes,
nothing and that they're not valuable?
It is the power of brainwashing at very early age. We were told as a woman, I was nothing but a shame. It is a hadith. That's what Muhammad said. A woman is nothing but a shame. Her marriage will cover up 1/10 of her shame, and her grave will cover up the rest of it. So could you imagine growing up believing you're filthy? You're just a piece of garbage?
While you were in medical school, you worked for a while at a gynecological clinic.
Yes.
What did you see there?
Yeah, I see, I mentioned that in my book, the main task for the doctor is to check the virginity of young girls and to patch whatever, whoever lost her virginity. And most of them eventually would admit that they were raped by a member of their family. And they have no right to report the rape or to speak against it. Because in Islam, if a woman gets raped, she has to have 4 witnesses in order to prove her case. It's a very sad situation. I lived it. It's part of my past.
The book we're discussing is called A God Who Hates. Wafa Sultan is in the studio with me. She's the author of that book, and she's been speaking out against what she calls the evils of Islam. Dr. Sultan, in your 5th year of medical school, you witnessed the murder of your ophthalmology instructor.
Yes.
Who killed him and why?
A group of Muslim Brotherhood. They killed him because he happened to belong to the same sect of Islam that the Syrian president belonged to. So it was out of revenge against the president.
So nothing that this professor had done.
They couldn't kill the president, so they killed him just, out of revenge, while they were shouting, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. It was a very painful turning point of my life. I started to question what kind of Allah, we are worshiping.
You said something interesting in your book, which was that you believe that the religion of Islam arose as a response to fear.
Of course.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, because, you need to understand the environment that Islam was born in. Bedouin were consumed by fear, living in this tough environment in the desert, not knowing what will happen the next moment. So I believe Islam created this fearful God to convince his follower that there is a power stronger than your fear.
But there's a lot of cultures out there that, 1,400 years ago had a lot of fear. And why would Islam be any different?
You need to understand that the pre-Islamic culture, the raid, how they survived on raiding each other. So Islam didn't change this culture, but legalize it instead of changing it.
But why? But that was 1400 years ago. Why would that impact today's Islam?
Because we still controlled by fear. That's why. We are still consumed by fear. You know, I tell you a story. My sister came from Syria to visit me. We were sitting in my living room in California, thousands miles away. I asked her, she's my best friend, not only my sister. I asked her a question about Islam. She said, sister, walls have ears. She wasn't able here in America to express herself. It's the fear.
What was she afraid of? I mean, clearly nobody was listening to you when you were in...
She was afraid of Allah. She was afraid of the power of Islam. She was brainwashed to be afraid. She doesn't know probably from what she's afraid.
But what would happen to you if you started to question the religion?
You're not allowed to question.
But what are they afraid of would happen to them?
They will kill me right away. I will be killed. A question will lead me to death.
So they're not necessarily afraid of God. They're afraid of each other.
But the others represent Allah on earth for them. So they believe others will do what Allah wants them to do. So it's very complicated situation. And fear is the most destructive human emotion. I know it from my experience. I live in fear 24/7.
Why did you want to immigrate to the United States?
Looking for freedom, looking to be myself, to live the life I want to live. It's a very long story, but...
And how did you feel?
I believe for the same reason everybody is here.
And how did you feel when you first arrived in the U.S.?
I lived in conflict for a while, you know, very, very psychological conflict. You know, I was torn between my culture and between the American culture. And it took me many experiences to be able to open my eyes and see the truth.
I don't understand that. Why was there a conflict?
I was suspicious of every American.
Why?
Because I was Muslim and I was taught they hate us because we're Muslim. They are fighting us because we are Muslims. You know, I still remember, I tell you a story just so you can understand my point. I lived in a small house. My next door neighbor once came to my house, shook my hand and introduced himself. And he said he was a retired policeman. I was about to die by heart attack when I heard him saying a policeman. You know how we live in our country. So somehow I believed he was a spy, spying on me and my family to report it to the FBI, you know. And I was terrified. Every day I would tell my husband I saw his wife looking at our house. I saw his children outside looking for me. Finally, we decided to move out of our house. You know, 2 days before he came, he knocked my door and he said, my neighbor, I know a big favor. I said, what? He said, would you please translate to my gardener because he's Mexican, he doesn't speak English, and tell him what I want him to do in my garden? I said, in Spanish? He said, yes, but I don't speak Spanish. He asked me, aren't you from South America? I said, no, I'm from Syria. He said, where is Syria? I said, in the Middle East. Oh, you don't speak Spanish in Syria? So the point, you see how brainwashed I was, how terrified.
But why did you think that Americans were out to get you because you're a Muslim? This is before 9/11.
This is the way we've been raised. They are after us just because we worship the right God. They worship devil. We worship the right God, and they're after us. The devil in them is after us to finish Islam. And I was brainwashed to believe it. Until this moment, I am still trying to clean my subconscious. People ask me, Are you still Muslim? Do you consider yourself Muslim? I don't believe in Islam, but culturally, yes, I am Muslim. It's my skin, you know? It is in my subconscious. You know, you are who you were told you were in the first 5 years, 10 years of your life.
Dr. Sultan, shortly after you arrived in the United States, you started to write, and you wrote commentaries for Arab publications. How were they received?
You know, let me be honest with you, I wasn't as tough as I am today. Because as I said before, I suffered of some kind of psychological conflict. But I was every day changing. I reached a point in my writing when a member of CARE, I don't know if you're familiar, I'm sure you know CARE.
Yeah, CARE is the Council on American Islamic Relations.
Yes, a member of CARE prior to September 11 called me at my home, and he said in Arabic, Wafa, you're crossing the red line.
And what is that supposed to mean?
It means for someone who knows the Arabic language very well that be careful. He tried to be very nice, but he said, you're crossing the red line.
This is a threat.
Absolutely, a pure death threat. A death threat.
And was he...
when I asked him...
Was he representing CARE when he made that call, or he's representing himself?
Ayloush, he's very well-known member of CARE. And when I asked him, what do you mean by that? He said, we can take you to American court because you are insulting our religion. And believe it or not, I was to some point afraid. So I back off a little bit and I slow myself a little bit until the very first moment I heard of September 11. It was another turning point of my life. I said, let him take me to court. Enough is enough. And since then, I've been Wafa Sultan, the Wafa Sultan I want to be.
Dr. Sultan, you obviously speak out very forcefully for women's rights, but many Muslim women are your most vocal critics. Why is that?
You know, as I said before, it is not easy to go against your religion. I receive many, countless positive emails from Muslim women, but with fake name behind the scene, because they cannot come out of their hiding and speak up. It is not easy. It is very tough. For Muslim women who live here in America, they are protected by the American Constitution. So they don't feel the pressure to speak against Islam violating women's rights. They don't feel the pressure. They're living the Western life.
I understand that, but many of them don't believe that Islam violates their rights.
The only reason, if they don't believe, because they don't know the depths, the deepness of their religion. Probably they don't speak Arabic. Probably they have never read the Islamic Sharia. Probably they have never read the life of Muhammad. They are Muslim by birth. And this is the case for most of them.
Now, but there are a lot of Muslim women who would say that they feel freer when they wear the hijab or the veil, so as not to be like sexual objects, like they say women are in the West.
They wear it to feel more protected from their own community, not freer, more protected from their community. Because the way Muslims treat uncovered women is very tough to take it, very tough to deal with it. So they prefer to cover themselves to avoid being called bad names or being treated in a bad way.
Like as an immoral woman,
exactly.
Let's say. Wafa Sultan is in the studio with me. She's an author and psychiatrist. In 2006, she was listed as Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world. The book we're discussing is called A God Who Hates. The courageous woman who inflamed the Muslim world speaks out against the evils of Islam. Some critics, Dr. Sultan, would say that your views on the mistreatment of women are the result of your personal experiences, and that this is not the universal experience of Muslim women. How do you respond to that?
Look at any Islamic country and tell me about the situation of women under Islamic Sharia. You know the situation of Saudi women. You know the situation of women in Afghanistan. Personally, I have never suffered because I was well treated by my parents. They sent me to attend medical school 200 miles away from the city I was born and raised in it. I met my husband when I was 18, and I've been treated by him as a queen. So I have never suffered as a woman, but I witnessed as a medical doctor many crimes committed under Islamic Sharia against women.
But what about non-Islamic cultures and their mistreatment of women? I mean, is it fair to just blame Islam when, for instance, in India, you have bride burning? That's, in the rural Hindu areas, in China.
Every place, every city in the world, there are abused women. But the difference, abused women is legalized under Islam.
Explain that.
Yeah, under Islam, the man had the right to beat his woman. The man had the right to marry 4 women and to sleep with as many women as he can buy. This is legalized. This is permitted under Islamic Sharia. My next door male neighbor has more control over my life as a woman than I do under Islamic Sharia. If my next door male neighbor, sees me wearing something he doesn't like, he had the right to interfere and stop me from doing that. Because women are not mentally fit to take care of their own life.
Even highly educated women like yourself.
Of course, women have no right to ask for divorce under Islamic Sharia. Here, if you're abused, it's your personal choice. You are protected by the law. You can go and fight against your abuse. But under Islamic Sharia, you cannot do that, because if you did, it means you're fighting against Islam itself. You cannot protest against your abuse.
Why did you name your book A God Who Hates?
Because Allah is a God full of hate. A God who allows his follower to beat women is a God of hate. A God who allows his followers to behead whoever doesn't believe in his message is a God of hate. And I truly believe every man eventually becomes the God who worships.
But what about all the peaceful and compassionate verses in the Quran that you never mentioned?
They were abrogated by the later verses. You have Mecca verses and Medina verses. Mecca, when Muhammad was very weak, at that time he had only 30, 40 followers. So he moved to Al-Medina and established a big army and eventually become a very strong warrior. Then he said, forget about the former verses. And he adopted a very violent ones later on. So in the Quran itself, you're not allowed to follow the Mecca verses, only the Medina verses.
So for you personally, I mean, now that you've rejected this, what you call the God who hates, What do you believe spiritually?
I do believe in supernatural power of good. I truly do. But I don't follow any religion. I am recovering.
What do you hope to accomplish with this book?
My message now to people in the West, that Islam is infiltrating the West, and you have to be aware of that.
But what's wrong with that?
It is very wrong. The wrong is you don't know how wrong it is. The wrong is you ask me this question. You need to know the truth about Islam in order to understand why I don't want Islam to be spread in America. Islam is not a religion. It is a very dangerous political ideology.
How do you characterize it as that?
Because you cannot be a Muslim unless you believe in Islam as a state. I was one of my Muslim community. I was involved with my Muslim community for the first 5, 6, 7 years of my life in America. I heard it million times that we are here to spread Islam and eventually to replace the American Constitution with Islamic Sharia. Muslims are not allowed to be ruled except by Islamic Sharia. They're here practicing the concept of al-taqiyya.
What does that mean?
It means you can cheat, you can lie, you can hide your feeling in order to achieve your objective. They are practicing and they are well trained to be patient with time. Their concept of time is totally different than the Western concept of time. They can wait 10 years, 20 years, 100 years very patiently in order to reach their goal, which is to take over. And they truly believe they don't need to be the majority to take over. They need to be only 10% of the population in order for them to have the power to do it. And look to Europe and see what's happening right now. You understand what I'm talking about. So in order for you to know what's wrong of having Islam spread here, you need to read the Islamic text. You need to go back and read the life of Muhammad and how he dealt with non-Muslims. Then you understand the danger that the West is facing right now.
Wafa Sultan, she's an author and medical doctor, born and raised in Syria, and now resides in the United States. In 2006, she was named part of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world. Her book is A God Who Hates, The Courageous Woman Who Inflamed the Muslim World, Speaks Out Against the Evils of Islam. It's published by St. Martin's Press. Dr. Sultan,